In a sense, your Tenement Memories is almost a collaboration between this museum and the people of Dublin. From the beginning, there's been a real emphasis on inviting people to share with us their memories. I think what's nice about that is it gives people a sense of active participation with the museum, and it gives people, I suppose, a sense of ownership over the museum and the project more broadly. So we initially began looking for people who had lived specifically in this house, and that helps us in all kinds of ways. That helps our guides interpret the building, that helps with programming in the building. We widened the scope out to looking at the street, and in time we began looking at tenement living in Dublin more broadly. So it's something that has been able to engage with thousands of people directly and indirectly across the city of Dublin through the interviews themselves, programming and other things.
So the collection of memories would stem originally from the first phase of the project, which involved people coming to 14 Henrietta Street. It was an open house. Large volumes of people came to share their memories. There were written recordings made at that time, and following on quickly from that, we went out to communities. We went to libraries around the suburbs of Dublin, where maybe it was easier for people to access, and again, written memories were taken. Following on from that, it was felt that there was even a greater richness if we had the opportunity to sit and record these people's memories. And it allowed for a more expansive memory to be documented. And there is such richness in these memories. It deserves to be recorded, the voice heard, the emotion, and it's a privilege to be able to do that with people.
When we do the Tenement Memory collections, we'll go out to communities. So not everybody has managed to come into us, but we'll go out to communities and community centres and libraries and sports halls, and we'll invite people to come to us in those areas to share their memories. After they do that, they'll come into us again. We'll have tea and biscuits, and we'll document their stories. But then we find that they're coming in to the museum and bringing their families in and bringing generations, the grandparents all the way down to their grandchildren are coming in as a group booking, so that's kind of special as well. But we always go out, we always invite people in. If people on the tour say that they want it, they have a memory, they always have the opportunity to come and sit with us and tell us their stories. Sometimes they don't now, it's enough to say their little piece and they'll go off and that'll be the end of it. And sometimes they'll come on the tour and they won't say much at all, but they'll come back to us a week or a month or two later and say, look, I done the tour and I thought about it, and the more I think about it, the more I want to share my memories. So we allow for that as well. We've always got a lot of people that come in and want to share. Not everybody does, which is understandable, and not everyone had happy memories of the tenements. But the majority of people are happy enough to share with us. And if you want to share with us and you don't want us to share your story, you can always tell us your story. We'll document it and it'll be there for history, but we won't ever use it. There's always the chance to be anonymous or to not ever use your words, but we'll keep them for you.
We always give people the opportunity to listen back to the recording, because inadvertently they may have gone somewhere that they might in retrospect say, oh, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned. So there's always the opportunity to people to delete, omit, redact something from the recording before it becomes part of that greater archive.
If you were to walk around this building and take the tour, you might ask yourself, what is in the collection of this building? And of course there are items, the artefacts in Miss Dowling's flat, which are really artefacts of everyday life. Things that you would have bought in a grocery shop in the 1950s and 60s in Dublin. But these are also an artefact. The oral histories that we collect are a very, very important artefact, and they go into the collection of this museum. So collections and what collections mean for museums, especially museums that deal so prominently in oral history, that really is changing everywhere.
The other thing as well is they're real people's stories. You can't emphasise that enough. It's what people would have, the lives that people would have lived. It's not something that's taken from a dry page of a book. It's the real people are telling you these stories. They stick with you, because they are an important part of Dublin's history, Dublin's heritage, part of the heritage of the tenement. So they stick with you as you're going through, and people relate to the stories, and that's the important thing, because so many people lived in the tenements. They would have heard bits of stories here and there, and when you're telling nearly the full story of tenement life, because you're never going to tell the complete story, but when you're telling this story, people realise And they might have listened to their mother, their grandmother, like, you know, they were hearing the stories, and then it brings it all to life for them.
You have that very visceral connection to the museum with those stories, because you do have that amazing agency. You have always these little voices that are saying, don't forget to tell them about this, don't forget to tell them about that. And we can picture the person who has given us that story. And like I said, we're gifted. So we're the transmitters of these stories. And as folklore is transmitted, so are these little micro-histories through us. And we feel very privileged to be able to do that here in this house.
And especially people that lived in the tenements, it brings a sense of belonging, and maybe when they come in at first, they don't think they have a sense of pride. Not everybody, some people do, but they leave with a sense of pride and a sense of belonging, and you know, and the opportunity to share their story, which they thought probably, you know, nobody'd be interested in my story. I just lived my life in these rooms, but when they leave, they're like, oh no, that's important, you know.
I've had a great time, bit of laugh. Can't shut me up sometimes. And this is the girl that was so introverted and wouldn't even go into a shop.
For museums that put emphasis on social history, and we certainly do, I mean, we believe that the story of this street, the story of this house, and the story of this city, you know, is best told through a social history lens. If you believe in that, as we do, collecting oral history is vitally important. And that's not to diminish the work of academic historians or geographers or anyone else who looks at a landscape like this. All of that work is important. But we think it's important to centre the people themselves within the story. And oral history is how you do that. It's how you gather those perspectives of people for whom this was a lived reality. So for us, the best practice approach is to take these interviews in conjunction with the people of Dublin themselves in a way that they will be fully accessible in the future to generations of Dubliners yet to come.
This house is being preserved now, and all the stories and people's memories are being preserved forever, for at least another 300 or 400 years, you know. So yeah, it's brilliant, really nice.